Hi, everyone. It's Angela Kennecke. I had the privilege of meeting our next podcast guest in person after we did this podcast interview virtually. Vonn Webb is such a personable and dynamic guy, and I am so saddened by the loss of his son to fentanyl. He's doing a lot of work in his son's name, just like I'm doing in Emily's name, and what brought us together is an upcoming Next Star special. It's actually a follow-up to their first special that already came out called Saving a Generation. And they brought several of us parents together who were featured in the special to Dallas to sit together and talk. And it was really quite wonderful. And that will be coming out this spring. But in the meantime, I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Vonn Webb. For so many young athletes, playing a college sport is the dream. But for Taelin Webb, one wasn't enough. He excelled in two, from standout basketball player to football star at Southern Utah University. Taelin was the kind of athlete who seemed unstoppable, disciplined, passionate, and in peak physical condition.
Ended up being their defensive back of the year, senior year, and junior year they won a championship.
Taelin's dad, Vonn Webb, who also coached at the collegiate level, says he didn't have any major concerns about his son. But little did he know, his son had a secret struggle.
He had gotten injured and he was dealing with injuries, and his strength coach had told me that he was one of the hardest working guys in the weight room in the whole 9 yards.
Taelin was struggling, and that battle has made his father create a new playbook to transform his biggest loss into a source of hope and strength for other families. Well, Vonn, it's great to actually connect with you. We are connected in maybe an unconventional way. We were both featured in a national fentanyl special produced by Nexstar, which has about 180 TV stations across the country. And both of our children's stories were featured in that special. And it can be found online. I'm going to put a link to it. But I was really moved and so touched by your son's story and everything that you're doing.
Well, you know what? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I also was moved by Emily's story, and I sit back and I go, sometimes you feel like you're the only one when you're dealing with these things, right? Like it's just you, but there's a lot of people out there. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So many of us out there, sadly. I always say I think we're at a tipping point where enough of us have been affected now that there has to be change, right? But the one thing that you and I have in common that not everybody has to deal with is really we're both public people.
Right. Yeah, me coaching basketball for all these years and you being on the news and as an anchor person. And so we're in everybody's faces anyways, right? So here we go, dealing with this.
Did that make it challenging for you or harder for you being in the public eye, or what do you think about that?
I've been very blessed as a coach to be able to coach some very, very good players and had a lot of success. And so I've always been in that realm, right? Always in the public eye since I started coaching. So it's, sometimes it's hard when you have personal stuff to keep it private.
Vonn was a highly accomplished and respected coach at both the high school and collegiate levels. At Washington Union High School in Fresno, California, he led his team to multiple state championships and earned the title of California State Coach of the Year. He had an eye for talent, helping shape some of the best basketball players in the state, including future NBA stars such as Chris Jeffries, Deshaun Stevenson, and more. Later, he brought his skills to the college scene, coaching at schools like Fresno State.
And my son was a really good athlete and he played Division I basketball and football. So he was in the public eye. So we're kind of out there exposed anyways. You figure how to deal with things publicly and you just try to deal with them the best way you can.
Vonn was incredibly close with his youngest son, Taelin. They shared love of the game that brought them even closer. In fact, Vonn coached Taelin during his senior year of high school.
He begged me to come back and coach him. And I had been done with coaching. I was like, I'm done with this adult business. Oh, come on, please, pops, back. Come on, please come back and coach me.
Oh,
Okay, come coach me.
but that is so sweet because not every kid would want their dad to coach them.
I told him that. I said, you sure you want me? You know I am a tough coach. You know? I'm real about this. No, please. Okay, so I did it. It was great.
After high school, Taelin went on to play Division I basketball at Cal State Northridge, which would be a dream come true for many athletes.
During spring break, he tells me, he goes, Pops, I don't think I want to play here anymore. I'm done with this because things weren't going very well. I said, you're a freshman. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay. Fight through it and you'll be all right. So we talked about it again. And so we decided to make a move. And he went to a junior college in Texas and went down there and played there. And he started to get re-recruited, that type of thing. But he was just like, he called me about 1 or 2 in the morning. He was in Denver his flight was delayed through Denver going back to Lubbock. And he said, Dad, I'm watching this story on Victor Cruz, and I really like his story and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. I go, why are you calling me this early in the morning to tell me? He goes, I don't think I want to play basketball anymore. And I said, what? I don't think I want to play basketball anymore. I kind of lost my passion for it. I want to do something different. I said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to play football. I myself played basketball and football in college, so I kind of had a feeling that was kind of the route he wanted to go.
After a lot of thought, Taelin walked away from the sport he knew so well and took a chance on something completely new. Even though he'd never played football before, he landed a spot at a Division I program, Southern Utah University.
He's a very good athlete, 6'11" high jumper, 23-foot long jumper. He was a basketball player. He was fast. Those guys looked at him as a good athlete, and so they loved him. He was like a real inspiration to those guys just because he had came from a non-football situation. Ended up being their defensive back of the year, senior year, and junior year they won a championship. He had a really good football career. I was proud of him. I was really happy for him and proud of him because he had never done it before.
Sounds like he really followed in his dad's footsteps in so many ways.
Better than mine. He always wanted to beat me at everything and be better. I said, oh, you got me, son. Good job.
In addition to his athletic achievements, Vonn was also proud of who Taelin was off the field.
This is the kind of kid he was. He went to the strength house in Southern Utah for, I think it was Thanksgiving dinner one year. Well, it was a roommate of his. His roommate's grandfather has a heart attack and dies right there in front of them all. Everybody just sitting there like in shock. They're like, out the blue. Everybody's sitting on looking at each other. Well, Taelin jumps down and starts giving CPR because he had stopped breathing. They called 911. He starts giving him CPR and doing the chest compressions, and they brings him back to life right as the paramedics come walking in the door. And this kid had no training for anything. He just had on it. But you know what? And he didn't even call me and tell me that happened. His roommate called me about a week later, and he goes, Coach, did Taelin tell you what happened? I was like, what are you talking about? He said, he saved my grandfather's life. This is what, and he told me the story, and I go, what? I didn't even tell me that.
So he was modest. He wasn't looking for the glory. Vonn believed his son was on the right track and says he never had any major worries about him.
He was always a responsible, committed athlete. He was a great brother. He was a great young man. I never worried about him. That was part of my whole thing. We talked on a consistent basis. He stayed in touch.
But even though they talked on a regular basis, Taelin was hiding a secret from his dad. After getting injured playing football, he started taking Percocet to manage the pain.
And I had no knowledge. I was around him in the whole 9 yards, and His girlfriend or friend had told me that every now and then when he was feeling something, he would take a pill or whatever the case may be. And I was just like, wow, I had no knowledge of any of this before, I didn't know.
So somehow he must have obtained a Percocet that was a fake pill that had fentanyl in it.
That's exactly what happened because he gets a Percocet because he trained and working out in the whole 9 yards. He was getting ready to try out to go play up in Canada.
Oh,
And
for the Canadian Football League?
and after I got the call and the whole 9 yards and went through all that, we didn't know what the reasoning was. It came back that it was accidental, overdose. And so it was only way it would have been was he had gotten a bad pill.
It's amazing that this little bit of fentanyl can take down a big, strong man like that. I often think about that. Like, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter who it is.
It doesn't matter. And since then, I've had multiple friends of mine who have lost a family member. And same thing. They thought they had one thing and it was another.
Those fake prescription pills that actually contain fentanyl are a big driver of our nation's overdose epidemic. In fact, the DEA has sent out a public safety alert warning that half of the illicit pills tested in 2024 contained a potentially deadly dose of fentanyl. That's actually down, though, from 70% in 2023.
And for me, not knowing that there was ever any issues, not knowing what was going on, I didn't even know what fentanyl was, to be totally honest with you. And so I was just like, when that report came back and it was fentanyl, I was going, what is that? I really didn't know. I truly had no knowledge of because I had never experienced anything. And so that's kind of how people are now, I think.
Vonn says his son's death left him not only shocked and heartbroken, but also deeply affected Taelin's 6 siblings, adding another layer to the family's grief.
It's devastating. It was very devastating for his sisters and brothers because they had a very good relationship. Well, he was very close. And this just really shocked every single one of them. And to this day, I'll get a call from him out of the blue or a text out of the blue that they just met him. And he was one of those kids that had a great personality. Everyone that I've ever met that has met him, and I know has met Taelin, they loved him. He walked into the room and the room lights up. Big personality.
And once you got over the initial shock that you decided to use your platform as a coach, tell me what happened.
Well, I was talking with some friends of mine, a real good friend of mine, Ron Dotson and Eder Sanchez, and these are guys that I've been knowing forever. And they knew Taelin, they coached him as well as I did. And we thought about it, said, man, we just got to do something in his honor, for one, but to try to help save other people. And as we were sitting there talking, we came up with the decision to start a nonprofit and to be able to help as many people as possible. And that was just my thought process. I didn't want any parent to feel the way I felt. If I could help them save their child, if I can help them, I want to help them. I didn't want any athlete to go through anything that they were going through and not realize that there's people out there that they can talk to if there's issues for them. I want to make sure that I put as much awareness as possible because it's about helping the next person. That's the kind of person Taelin was. He coached little young kids. And at his memorial service, this young lady came from Southern California, came up to Fresno. She's like 10, 11 years old. One of his students that he was teaching and coaching, and it just broke my heart. And I was like, I want to give them the information and let them realize how real this is and how serious it is and how deadly this stuff is if you get a hold of it on purpose or accidentally. It don't matter,
Vonn started a nonprofit named Stay Shaded to raise awareness about the fentanyl crisis and help prevent further tragedies. The group also works to connect people battling substance use disorder with the treatment they desperately need.
We have a project in it called Athletes Against Fentanyl, AAF. We have a bigger platform, right? And they have a bigger voice when it comes to being able to help spread things like we did with our team at Fresno State. Our whole team did the PSA, and you saw the PSA, and that went over very well within the community.
Here's a clip from the PSA featuring Fresno State basketball players They're athletes who are role models in the community, especially for young, aspiring players.
In a flash, it's over.
It's a wrap.
No final buzzer.
Fentanyl is a poison, and it can and does kill.
Even the crumb of it won't care who you are.
Where you're from.
Or if it's your first pill.
It will block your dreams and steal your future.
And it was great because, all over the place, people saw me, loved it. And I was like, you know what? I just want to continue to do this. This is what I want to do because I want to make it. Because that's how Taelin was. And as I've decided to stay shaded, that's the kind of person he was. So I'm like, I have to do this.
Where does the term stay shaded come from?
He and I, before we got off the phone, he'd always say, we talked, and he'd say, okay, Pops. He always called me Pops. Pops, I got to go. He said, stay shaded, Pops. And I said, stay shaded, son. And that just meant for us to stay cool, do what you got to do, handle your, we're going to be okay. If you need something, call me, yada, yada. And so it was something that we said every day.
Yeah. So it has an extra meaning for you, for sure. Yeah. Does this work? Does it help your grief? And how is your grief kind of showing up? I don't get many men on this podcast to talk to me about their grief. Sometimes I do, but it feels like it's a lot of moms talking about it and talking about their grief. So how does that show up in your life?
I'm going to grieve every day. That was my guy. After I feel it and go through it and deal with it for that time period, it could be twice, 3 times a day, just depends on how it goes. But someone told me, well, Coach, every time you do him talking to you or him reaching out to you, you got to just, and I just think of positive things, as many positive things as I can. And I've gotten better. I've improved, in dealing with them. I'm not breaking down as much as I did before. Goes back to kind of what you asked me earlier. The reason why I got back into the college game was because I thought it would help me deal with it. And it did, because I was around players. It was like I was around him on a regular basis every day. Then it just got to a point where I was like, do more. I got to do something, and kind of work. Everything kind of worked out the way that it did, so I could go segue right into where I'm at today.
Vonn has switched from coaching people on how to play basketball to educating them about the dangers of illicit drugs.
I'm doing a lot of public speaking, because I figure if people can hear me, I can tell them my story and they can hear his story, it'll help them. And I think that helps me too, because I get to talk to people and be around people and explain to them and just realize that I'm doing something that I feel that he would be proud of.
As a coach, I would think that all of your skills from coaching really translate into that, in carrying Taelin's story forward and talking to students and athletes and others.
Oh, without question, without question. And I was a teacher for many, many, many years, and I was a principal. I've dealt with students and student athletes, and it helps a whole lot that I've had that in my past to be able to deliver the message now.
Do you think the message is getting out there? I'm thinking there's a little more attention on this crisis. It's been going on for years. The numbers have gotten worse. The overdose deaths dropped a little bit in the last year nationwide, not in my community, but nationwide. Do you think that specials like the one we were both featured in, do you think it's making a difference? Our nonprofits, do you think it's making a difference?
I pray that it is, but do I think so? Yes, but not enough.
Not enough. Yeah.
I don't think there's enough. There needs to be more awareness, more information, and more conversation. So it needs to be more of those out there. It needs to be more opportunities. That's part of the main reason why I'm doing the Athletes Against Fentanyl, the AAF, because I feel that those athletes broaden the spectrum of awareness, of getting it out there, And so I tell my guys all the time, the kids that I talk to, when you leave here, I want you to go talk to one person and tell one person what fentanyl is, what it's all about. What you've learned here today, just tell one person, And so with that being the case, it can help spread. I've talked to a lot of folks that had no idea what it is, just like I had no understanding. but I think there needs to be more to answer your
Yeah.
question.
And I feel like every time another person dies and another family is grieving, it's just breaks my heart because it's so unnecessary. People don't have to be dying from fentanyl, and I just think that it's just so sad, whether it be someone just getting a bad pill or whether it be someone suffering from substance use disorder. It doesn't really matter. It's just we have to do better.
100%. And I was telling my wife, Michelle, I said, the deal is here, it's just like other drugs, right? We're not going to stop the sale of drugs. These things are going to happen. There's been heroin and cocaine and marijuana and pills and everything. It's been around all the time, but to me, the mission is to get the information out there so that people can make better decisions and try to help prevent the young ones as they're growing up. Don't do it. It goes back to the 80s when you're talking about, say no to drugs. And I think that was Nancy Reagan's deal, but to me, it's about trying to get these young kids to realize how serious this is not your acid and your marijuana and this is death. It'll kill you. It's like playing Russian roulette, a reverse Russian roulette, right? And so my mission is to try to get these young kids to understand it, realize, don't do it, stay away from it, and try to get the next person to not do it, to stay away from it, to leave it alone.
Right. I always say the days of experimentation are the days where we think it's okay for our kids, to do something or try something are long gone. You cannot take anything from anybody. And we're trying to get that message across at Emily's Hope. And we have more and more schools, signing up for we start in kindergarten with some very important age appropriate messages for kids about, who's a trusted adult and medication versus candy. And I think we have to start younger and younger because I'm sure Taelin didn't know.
No.
He didn't know the
Well,
risk he was taking.
I didn't even know. And I'm an adult, right? And, I'm speaking at a school in California, getting Red Ribbon Week out there. One of the elementary school asked me to come, and they told you think it's too early to deal with these youngsters. I said, you know what? It's never too early. I'm gonna be honest with you. You got to find a way to communicate it to them, but it's never too early. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter. Obviously, we talked about her Uncle Tay, but I'm telling her, you can't take anything from anybody, because, there's people on campuses and anything can happen. It could be at any time, And so, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I'd like to talk to you more about your age appropriate information that you have.
And I'll share all that with you. We share it with our audience all the time. You can encourage, your school to implement it because we give it away as part of our mission right now. And it's a really great curriculum. And we just have to get these messages. And school is a good place to get that message. It's from your teacher or your guidance counselor. And one other question I had for you was, how does Taelin live on through the work that you do?
Well, everything that I do, I talk about him and I talk about who he was as a young man, but who he was as a person, as an athlete, and what his dreams and goals were. And as I'm speaking to people, I try to let them realize that, he's my why, which is so important to me because there's other kids, the other children that are out there, they are their parents' why, right? Right. What you're doing, the reason why you're doing what you're doing is because of your daughter. And as you do that, you let them realize this is why. And for me, Taylor, if it was someone else, if it was another one of our children, then Taylor would be right here with me doing what I'm doing, trying to help the next person.
Is your coaching career done now, do you think? Or do you see yourself going back to coaching at some point?
I don't know. I've been offered a few opportunities, and right now, that's not where I'm at, and I've done it. I did it for 30 years, 35 years. Had, like I said, a lot of success and was able to do some things. And I think my next step is, you got to be able to look in the rearview mirror and see what you did and be proud of it and keep pushing because if you keep looking and worry about what you did before, you're never going to get to where you're going to get because you're going to hurt yourself or somebody else, right, as you're going force. I just want to continue to help as many people as possible. And this is coaching in a way. When I'm talking and I'm out speaking in different places. And I've spoken to college teams, high school teams, high school student bodies in the whole 9 yards, right? This is somewhat coaching. I get my opportunity to express myself, my opinion and my thoughts and trying to help people and trying to motivate people and doing these things. It's just coaching in a different way. It's just not with sports.
And it's a different chapter of your life and not necessarily a chapter by your own choosing. That's what I often think. Like, I never thought my life would go in this direction that it has gone in, where this being my sort of life's work, my life's crusade to try to prevent these deaths. And the same thing with you. We did other things for a very long time, and I just never imagined. But it's challenging. It can be rewarding, but also it's not a choice I would have made to do it.
No, absolutely right. If I didn't feel it was necessary for me because of my situation and what I've dealt with, then I probably wouldn't be doing it. But if I had to do what I'm doing and no one else, the next person doesn't have to do this, doing my job. There's few people that have to do what we're doing. If that number goes down, if it goes down by one, we're doing our job.
It's always about trying to prevent the next person from having to go through, the next parent, especially, I think, but anybody who loses a loved one. There's such collateral damage from these losses. And I just was speaking to a group yesterday, and someone in the audience pointed out just from substance use alone, there's such collateral damage. Everyone in the family is hurt, let alone when they die. And so this is something that I guess we're on the front lines, and that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. And, there's generals and there's privates, right? And I just consider myself a general out there leading the bus, trying to make sure we do as much as we can and direct people in the right direction and try to make the right decisions and do what's best, so that they don't put themselves or anybody else in harm's way with this drug.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I like that. Well, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing Taelin, his story. And yeah, it's unbelievable to me and so unnecessary that we lose some of the best and brightest. I always say, look at all the lost potential to the world from these kids that we're losing. And, the songs that could have been written, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, everything. It's sad. And they titled that special we were on, Saving a Generation. I think I said we're losing a generation. We really are, with fentanyl being the number one killer, of young people.
And that's my thing. It needs to be more awareness. It needs to be more opportunity forward, because if you have that, at least you know that you're putting it out there for kids to make better decisions, conscious decisions about what they're doing and how they're doing and all this, right? But there needs to be more information and more awareness so that you can hopefully help people to be able to make better decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, thank you so much, Vonn. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. If you found it helpful, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, along with sharing it with friends and family. You can find more episodes, hear about our K-12 education curriculum, and read the latest news headlines about the fentanyl epidemic and substance use disorder on our website, emilyshope.charity. Together, we can make a difference and save lives. Thanks for listening. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wannenberg King and Marley Miller. Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K-12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe.